All right, our recording just began. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine Carson. I am a course director in the English department, and I also help out with the Writing Center. And today we have the Writing Center open house, and I'm going to be going over some of the features of the Writing Center along with some helpful hints as you write your own work. So some of you might be new to Full Sail. Welcome to those of you who are. And some of you might have been around for a while and maybe just learned about what the Writing Center is. And hopefully I will meet everybody's needs and answer all of the questions that you have today. I do want to let you know that the person who is actually the coordinator of the Writing Center, her name is Misty Wallard, and she'll be hosting an APA workshop in another 2 weeks. So if you're interested in more in-depth APA information than I cover here today, I recommend checking out the Writing Center's site on Connect so that you can have more information about APA formatting when that workshop is open. It will also be on a Friday afternoon. So this open house is offered once a month, and we are actually in the process of developing a grammar workshop that kind of goes over the most frequently asked grammar questions as well. And all of this will be announced on Connect as it comes up. So I will let you know how to take advantage of our services today. We'll cover some writing tips, and then I will open up the floor for questions. So first of all, what is the Writing Center? We offer a free writing consultation service for all Full Sail students from every degree program. So we can help you with all types of writing, with essay writing, brainstorming, research, outlining, thesis statements, grammar, and resumes and cover letters, things that you'll be writing here at Full Sail. We can help you hone your proofreading and editing skills, but one thing that we do not do is sit down and edit somebody's paper. What we really want to do is give you the agency, give you the knowledge so that you can take what you learn from a Writing Center appointment and apply it to your work yourself. So we'll definitely help you out. We will point out patterns of errors and help you understand how to make them better in your paper. But what we won't do is copy edit for you. And if you have questions about a specific paper and what your needs for it might be, just reach out to the Writing Center or reach out to your consultant when you do have your meeting and talk about your specific needs. And that way we can help you out in the best way for you. So we also help with APA style creative writing, including script writing, ESL, English for speakers of other languages, resumes and cover letters, etc. It's a pretty open-ended list, an exhaustive list of things we can help you with. So first of all, when is the Writing Center open? We're open from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. All help is provided during appointments, and there are a couple of types of appointments that you can choose from. The first type is the on-campus appointments. These are available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they are conducted in Building 4D near the distribution center. These are up to an hour long, and they must be requested at least 24-hour work days in advance. So what I mean by that is if you want an appointment Monday at 4 p.m., then you need to request it by Friday at 4 p.m. because we don't answer email over the weekends. All right, online appointments are our most popular type of appointment. These are available to you 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we use GoToMeeting, much like we're using today, only it would just be you and the consultant in the training. And these can be done either written, like in the chat box only, or verbally, but we can't guarantee that we can do a verbal appointment. Those are usually the most popular, but sometimes we're in the office and unable to actually talk to you just based on what's happening in the office that day. These are 1 hour long, just like the on-campus appointments, and just like those, they must be requested 24 business hours in advance. Now, a little bit different from that, we have library open hours. You can see Connect, our site on Connect for this month's library days, and there is no appointment required for these. So you can walk in, ask a question, and get it answered and walk out. You can work with someone for half an hour or a little longer if you need to, but you can also just ask a quick question as well. And these are first come, first serve. So, how do you make a Writing Center appointment? First of all, you can call 407-679-0100, extension 2340. There, you'll either talk to somebody directly from the Writing Center, or you will leave a voice message. When you leave a voice message, please include all of the necessary information, such as how to get back in contact with you with your phone number or an email address, what day and time you would prefer your appointment to be, like Monday afternoon, Tuesday after 5, something like that, and what you need help with, such as APA style or creative writing. The most common way that people request appointments is through email. You can email writingcenter@fullsail.com. We are often in the library or on campus and not always available to answer the phone, so either email or filling out an appointment request on Connect is the best way to do it. So I'm going to navigate to Connect right now and show you how to request an appointment. So this is the Writing Center's page on Connect. And what you would do is scroll down to appointment request form and click on that. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because I am an administrator on the site, so you'll see the back end of things if I show you, and it won't look the same as it does for you. But all you do is click appointment request form and then fill out the form with the necessary information. All right. I also, sorry about that, guys. I want to show you a couple of other things that are available to you on the Writing Center's site, which you may already be familiar with. But first of all, we have the quick link to the blog. And the blog is pretty cool. This is written by Writing Center consultants. And you can click for blog entries, most are pretty short, about grammar, about APA formatting, and so forth. It's pretty neat, and I recommend that you check that out. We also have online resources like the Writing Center Facebook group and Pinterest and APA links. We're going to go over the Purdue OWL site and Project APA today, a little bit later. And there are some cool downloads as well, such as under APA Help, there's an APA visual guide that's a PDF that takes you through a paper stylized in APA format, and it shows you exactly how to set it up and what each part of the paper looks like. So I highly recommend that you check these things out. All right, now back to the presentation. How can you write better right now? We're going to move into some proofreading tips at this time. So first of all, what is proofreading? Basically, when you proofread, you read over your assignment several times after you've written it in order to catch mistakes with grammar, punctuation, or anything really that could be stronger. And many students tell us that they have trouble with catching their own mistakes. So I'm going to go over some strategies that might help you find errors on your own. The first one might sound a little odd, but it's actually to take a break. So if you stare at your writing for too long, your brain can actually skip over things because it understands what you meant. You know, if you mixed up affect and effect, for example. So what you can do after working on a paper for, let's say, an hour is take a break. Go take a 10-minute walk, make dinner, play half an hour of a video game with your kids, and then come back to the work with a fresh mind. The next tip is to print it out. It's much easier to see mistakes on the printed page than on the computer screen. I've read articles about this. Actually, your brain registers the information differently when you read it on paper versus reading it off of a screen. Like your brain actually understands it differently. So it's worth trying out. Related to printing it out is reading it out loud. Now, I realize in this picture he's reading it out loud from his laptop, but I recommend printing out the work and then reading it out loud. You can also ask someone to read it out loud to you while you read along silently. I have a friend who recently wrote a textbook, and she had people, including me, go over to her house and read it to her while she made notes on her own. And that was really, really helpful to her. You can also read it backwards. This can be a little confusing. What I mean by this is start with the last sentence of your piece, then read the second to last sentence, then the third to last sentence, and work your way back up to the top of your paper. Checking for specific errors is probably my favorite way to proofread. So what this means is maybe you've had a writing center appointment or you've gotten feedback from your teacher that says you have issues with run-on sentences. So one thing you can do is look at your paper only for run-on sentences. Ignore everything else. Ignore spelling, ignore punctuation, except when it has to do with a run-on sentence, and just fix the run-on sentences. Then, when you feel good about those, go back through and look only for spelling issues. Once you're happy with those, go back through and look only for a couple of other things. That way, you're not going to miss anything. And you can also write a list and check it off. Okay, I've gone through my run-on sentences. Great. Okay, I've gone through and looked for spelling issues. Cool. Now what is next? And that way you don't get overwhelmed by looking for too many things at once, and you don't skip over things at the same time. All right, now on to the third part of this presentation. Paper writing strategies. First up, we have make a plan. Now this can be a little intimidating, especially if you've opened up a Word document and just stared at the cursor, not knowing what you should write. You might write a sentence and then delete it. You might feel like there's a lot of pressure with that open blank page, but that's okay. You can change your thought process about that and address it as a way that you can actually come up with new ideas. You just need to really rethink the writing process. So with the writing process, we're looking at 5 stages. And I'm going to go over each stage and then talk a little bit about the difference between revision and editing. So first, we pre-write. We understand the assignment. In order to be successful, you need to make sure you understand what the objectives are and what your teacher wants from you. So read the assignment thoroughly. Ask your instructor if you have any questions about it, and make sure you ask them during the time that they will check their messages, before an assignment is due. And consider what you need to do before you write. Do you have to do any reading? Will you make a trip to the library? How much time will these tasks take you to do? And you know yourself as a writer. How much time do you need to draft something? Do you work well under deadline, or do you need to start a couple of days or a week in advance? Be honest with yourself and how much time it takes you to do something, and be honest about your process. Do you need to spend more time on one step than another based on feedback you've received in the past? Make sure you also understand the goal of the assignment. Is it a research paper? Are you being asked to make an argument and support it with outside sources? Is it an opinion paper, a critique, a compare and contrast? What's the goal? All right. Are you being asked to prove that you understand something? Are you being asked to convince somebody of something? What's going on behind the paper? The next part of pre-writing is brainstorming. You're probably familiar with this term. There are lots of ways to brainstorm. If the assignment's instructions ask specific questions about the topic, go ahead and sketch out some answers to those questions. It may be best for you to do this by hand rather than on a computer screen, because when you work by hand, not everything has to be, from left to right, top to bottom. When you think about your topic, what ideas come to mind? Jot as many as you can down without judging them. You can cross off ideas later, but the brainstorming time is not time to judge, it's just time to think of organic ideas. Then look at the ideas you've come up with. Keep the ones that make you really think and make you interested in the topic, and scratch off the ones that seem off topic or aren't as interesting to you. Then you'll conduct some research if necessary. The goal is to find outside sources that help support the main ideas you come up with during the brainstorming part. The library has some research databases that you can use, and I'm going to show you those right now. So I'm on the library's page with Connect, and I scroll down to research databases. There's a little note if you're off campus, you might want to read that. And then just for example, we'll go to EBSCOhost here. Come on. And you'll be able to search, let's just say we want to search Academic Search Complete. EBSCOhost is basically a huge search engine of academic work. So you'll put in your search terms. One thing to be very aware of is make sure that you click for full text, all right? This is just a little hint. Limit your results to full text, because otherwise you might get abstracts, which are basically descriptions of essays. You might get abstracts that sound really cool, but then you can't read the whole article because we don't have access to it. So make sure you click full text when you're doing library research on Connect. So there are lots of databases to choose from. We've got the AP Images collection, which gives you images, Film and Television Literature Index, etc. So I highly recommend that you check that out even before you have research to do, just so that you're familiar with it. It works a little bit differently than Google does, for example. All right, now it's time to outline. This kind of overwhelms me, this image right here, but it might make perfect sense to you if you're a visual learner or if you're the one who came up with this particular image. I like lists, personally. I like outlines, I like lists. Other people like bubbles, that look like spider webs. You start with a main idea in the center, right? Draw a circle around it. Then your subtopics are kind of like spokes on a wheel. They're outside, and you circle those and you connect everything with lines. Some people work really well with that. Think about what you're going to talk about in your body paragraphs of the essay. How are you going to support an argument? What are you going to put in the conclusion? And how are you going to introduce the ideas in the introduction? One tip I have here is to start writing with your body paragraphs and then write your introduction and conclusion later, because you might actually learn more about your topic and about what you are saying about your topic, which is really what's important here, as you write the paper. The outline is like a map you can follow when you sit down to write. And then the last step of pre-writing is the draft. All of that pre-writing will help you as you face that page, that possibly blank page, and you start to write your paper. One thing that's very important to consider is audience. Now, you might think of audience kind of like this image here as people watching a movie or people watching a play. That gets a little bit more specific when you're talking about writing for a particular audience. So you might think that your instructor or your peers, if you're doing a discussion post, are the only audiences for your paper, but it actually depends on who you're writing the paper for theoretically. So your instructor might be asking you to address people who agree with your topic. Your instructor might be asking you to address people who disagree that you're supposed to convince of something. You might be presenting a paper about a problem in the industry that people who are more experienced or who have jobs in the industry might want to consider. So you need to think about who your paper is for and what they might get out of it. So think, who is my audience? Do I have possibly more than one audience? What is most important to my audience? And what are they likely to care about? What can I bring in that will really connect them to the subject matter? And then what are they least likely to care about that I might have to teach them about, or that I can just leave out of my paper because it might not be that important to them? Do you have something to say that might surprise your audience? And what do you want your audience to think, learn, or assume about you, the topic of your paper, and your writing? You also want to consider tone carefully. For example, if you write an email to your boss, that's probably going to look a lot different than a text message to your best friend. You might spell words differently, you might use punctuation differently, and let's not even go into using emojis, right? So think about tone, think about the word choices you're making, spelling, and what might be appropriate for a particular audience. Remember that in academic and business writing, the word choices we use tend to be more formal. They don't have to be like super formal and use a thesaurus in order to come up with words and use a dictionary to figure out what all the words mean. It doesn't have to be that level of formality, but it's going to be more formal than a text message or an email to a friend, something like that. You want to consider writing to your teacher almost like you're writing to your boss. Another thing you want to do is write concisely. This means that you're using only the most necessary words as you write your work. So you don't want your readers to have to sift through a lot of fluff in order to get to your main ideas. We want your ideas to be the focus. So get straight to the point and eliminate extra words like really, great, or very, because those don't add much meaning to the sentences. You can also avoid I believe, I think, and in my opinion. Basically, everything that is not cited as coming from another source is going to be assumed as coming from you. And that's why citing our sources is so important, because we don't want a plagiarism issue, right? But writing I think doesn't really add much to the paper, because we're going to assume that these are your thoughts, these are your opinions. Try to write to the point sentences that aren't too flowery. If you have too many ideas in one sentence, it might actually be a run-on, so be careful about those. And try not to fit too many ideas into one paragraph, too. Each paragraph should link back to your thesis statement, which is the essential argument that you're making. And each paragraph should have one major point that it's making. When you start to meander into a different point, that might be time to start a new paragraph. Each paragraph should introduce a new idea, and the sentences in that paragraph should support that idea. Next, we're revising. So earlier we talked about proofreading. Revising is looking at your paper in a more holistic way. So when you revise, you want to look at global or higher order items, such as, does my argument make sense? Do I have a logical flow of ideas? Do I have a solid structure? Do my ideas transition clearly from one to the next? Does my research back up my ideas, or have I included things that aren't necessary? Does anything seem out of place? Does anything need to be expanded upon? Then we move into editing, and that works on a local level, or we have higher order items and lower order items. Basically, these are still important, but these have to do with words, with sentences, and how the sentences and words interact together. So these are things like grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, word choice, and spelling. You want to do that last, because if you do all of your proofreading and editing before you revise, you might make large changes when you revise that then have some of those errors in it. So you'll want to revisit it after you've done the revision. So revise, then edit and proofread. Editing and proofread are just about the same thing. Last, you're ready to turn it in. It's time to publish. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is using APA style. APA is the official citation style for Full Sail. Every class at Full Sail should be incorporating at least one assignment that requires research from those library databases that I already showed you. Now, APA can be intimidating. There are a lot of rules, but what you can learn from the Writing Center, and hopefully from your instructors too, is that you don't need to memorize all the rules. You just need to have places where you can go and find the answers so that then you can follow the rules yourself. So I have two really good APA resources to show you. The first is called the Purdue OWL, and OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. Now, this is very thorough. For example, you can just look on the left here. I want a reference list for electronic sources. Here is kind of the template, author, etc. And then here's an example, Bernstein M. So that's how that works. Another great source created by Full Sail instructors is called projectapa.info. This I highly recommend you check out too. So it's really easy to use, reference page, audiovisual media. You'll get some basic information about citing from this category, and then you have one example of each type of media. And this site is being updated all the time. So if you want something a little bit simpler to navigate, check out projectapa.info. If you want something that is more comprehensive, check out the Purdue Online Writing Lab. All right, so let me go back to my presentation here. And we are at the final part. This is where I answer questions that you might have. So if you do have a question, if you'd like to say it out loud, please click the hand to raise your hand. If you would like to write one down, you can put it in the chat box. I don't see any questions yet, but let's see here. And then once I answer the questions, we will end the presentation. And if you don't have any questions, would you mind just, okay, here's one. When it comes to citing sources, do we need a citation page for each of our papers or only if requested? All right, so typically, yes, you need to include what's called a references page for any sources that you've included in your paper. Now, that's generally what is accepted and necessary. your teacher might be looking for something else. It's possible, sometimes we're writing annotated bibliographies and those are a little bit different. For example, if you're really not sure if it's required of you, definitely reach out to your instructor and ask. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, but I will hang out here for a few minutes in case anybody is shy, doesn't want to ask while it's being recorded. I totally understand that. Thank you so much to those of you who are able to come today. I really appreciate it. I hope that you will check out the Writing Center if you haven't done so already. Writing Center at fullsail.com. And see a couple other questions popping up. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, but then I'll answer those questions. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.